Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bella Gamer, and today we're talking about a class that has changed so dramatically, and yet not a lot at all. It's very strange. Buckle up, everyone. We're in for a ride. We have a very controversial video today. I feel like the changes to Oracle is going to be something that's going to split the community to people who are okay with the changes and people who are going to absolutely hate them. And honestly, I don't know where I stand on that fence right now. I I'll get into it and I'll explain, but before I do, let me give some disclaimers here. So Paizo did in fact send me player court or a PDF of player court 2 for the purposes of review, but this video is not sponsored by Paizo, so all thoughts and opinions here are my own. Though the channel is partnered with Into the AM, you can go down into the description to get your own shirt that will poke holes in your body, as long as you have a green screen. This is actually not even green, it's blue. It's the same blue actually as this water that the Oracle is using here. Very interesting. But the shirts are really nice. They have a nice high cotton percentage, but they don't shrink. We've washed these a few times and had no problems so far. And you can get up to 3 tees for under 60 bucks, making each of them under $20, which is really good for graphic tees, as long as you use my code linked in the description down below and you use their special offer. But that code will get you 10% off of anything on the website clothing related. So, if you want to support the channel, please do so there. Anyway, now that the shilling is done, let's go ahead and talk about the Oracle. What has changed and why is it so controversial? So I do want to first start off with a bit of information that's been going around that is confusing a lot of people, and it's due to this graph here. As we can see, we have the Oracle spells per day showing Oracle being a 4-slot caster, which is insane. I mean, that's usually reserved for classes that are really all into the casting, similar to Sorcerer and Wizard. But I think this is an error, and I'm going to give y'all some proof. And granted, I definitely can be wrong, but what's written here shows the contrary. So first of all, I want to take a clip here from the Oracle Spellcasting. It says, each day you can cast up to 2 first-rank spells, period. That's it. So 2 first-rank spells, would be at level 1. That's not reflected here at all on the chart. So that's already kind of one nail in the coffin. And you might be like, okay, well, maybe that section is wrong and the graph is right. Well, there's another section that actually mentions this. Under spell repertoire, we have this section here that says, at 3rd level, you select 2 second-rank spells, and so on. When you add spells, you might add a higher rank, yada yada. It's based on the number of spell slots you have. Pretty standard for repertoire casting. You would need to select 3 spells at 2nd rank. So that's 2 different sections, the spell casting and the spell repertoire, that are contrary to the graph below. Now, obviously, this graph does have oracular clarity down here at the bottom, which does make me think that it could be either way. But based on how everything else is, and based on, honestly, I don't know why they would bump it up to 4 for no reason. I would say standardly, the graph is wrong. Unfortunately, this is something that Paizo is going to have to clear up because it's obviously going to be confusing. The text is contradicting the graph that we're seeing here. Now, balance-wise or anything like that, I don't really care, to be honest. If Oracles get more spellcasting, fine, 1 spell slot per spell rank, I don't think is going to break the bank. Though I will say, they're the last class that needs it. Oracle has so much spellcasting currently baked into how it's supposed to be working now that I feel like this is excessive. So that's kind of the first thing I wanted to mention. And a part of the controversial take already, because we have literally conflicting information in the book that's going to need to be eroded, which is really unfortunate and is not a great start for Oracle. Next, I want to talk about revelation spells, because revelation spells no longer gives you 2 focus points. And actually, you don't start off with one of the domain spells you would have had access to. So we have now just one revelation spell based on the mystery that we have selected, and that means we start off with one focus point. Now, the change here, and the big important thing to mention, though, is revelation spells no longer have the Cursebound traits. And this is actually due to the fact that Cursebound has been changed into a condition and has been linked to specific feats. Now, here is the Cursebound traits now, and essentially what it is Cursebound is a condition. Whenever you use a Cursebound ability, your Cursebound condition increases by 1, and if you are already at 1, it'll go increase by another 1. Now, when you start off, similar to how Oracle was before, you can only have a max of 2 in your Cursebound condition before you're no longer able to use any Cursebound abilities. And for your Cursebound condition, it essentially increases the severity of the curses for each of the mysteries. And as a special mention, because I think some people still are kind of unaware of how this is supposed to work, you can't mitigate or bypass any of the drawbacks for any Cursebound effect based on your Cursebound condition. Even if your character is immune to fire damage, if you have the Flames Mystery Curse, you will take persistent fire damage, no matter what. Though this is the same how it was before, where if you refocus, every time or every 10 minutes, I should say, that you refocus, you will reduce your Cursebound condition by 1. So you do still reduce your curse by refocusing your focus points, but casting revelation spells is no longer what gives you your curse. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal in a sense, and it makes a lot of sense considering now how the curse is supposed to work is the Cursebound feats are essentially like a second set of focus spells, but rather than spending focus points for them, you're increasing your Cursebound condition and suffering the negative effects. So for all intents and purposes, oracles now have it's just twice the number of focus points that other spellcasters have. Granted, the second set has some negative drawbacks. So that was just a lot of information I gave you all. So let me kind of just try to bring it back. So no longer do your focus spells for being a oracle increase your curse. Now we have new Cursebound feats that do it for us. Also, we don't start with an initial revelation spell plus a domain spell. We only start with the initial revelation spell, needing to select a feat in order to get the domain spells that our mysteries will give us access to. Refocusing still reduces our Cursebound condition by 1 step every 10 minutes that we refocus, and while we're refocusing, we can get our focus points back as well. Nothing can prevent our curse and the negative effects, and it explicitly states that sometimes you can't even take actions that would negate the effects of a curse. The curse is an intentional downside that your character will suffer if you choose to interact with your curse. And I think that's the biggest thing that I want to make special mention of. You now, as an oracle, have a choice when it comes to your curse. It's no longer baked into a core aspect of your class, which is your powerful revelation spells. Instead, it's baked into the feats that you get and or select that are very powerful and are as powerful as focus spells. In fact, some of the focus spell feats that we used to have for Oracle have been converted into just Cursebound feats that no longer use focus points, but still increase our curse. So it's up to you, but I would say in general, Oracle is potentially one of the most powerful casters in the game. It has twice the amount of focus resources that other casters tend to have, and a lot of big bang for their buck at the cost of some downside. It's really good, but there are some problems with it, which we'll get to here in a little bit. First, I want to talk about level 11 when we would get Major Curse. Now, we still get Major Curse, but now, rather than giving us an additional focus spell and the ability to recharge multiple focus points with a single refocus action, we now just, our Cursebound condition can now increase to 3. That does sound kind of lame, but many of the features in Oracle now do more based on the higher your Cursebound value. So that being the case, this actually does increase any of our well, not any, a lot of the Cursebound effects that we now have access to in this class. But we don't get extra focus points. So you're going to have to spend feats on that, which I admit does suck. Also at level 11, we actually gain what used to be a feat now as a general class feature, which is Divine Access. Divine Access does pretty much what it did before. We choose a deity associated with one of the domains that our mystery gives, which, by the way, is going to be a ton because we have twice the amount of domains that we used to for our mysteries. And now you get the granted spells added to your repertoire just like a cleric would. Or at least not like a cleric, because that's just access. They're a prepared caster. But this adds to our repertoire. So we just get extra spells. More similar to a sorcerer, I should have said. Now, it does specifically state 3 here, so we can't take something like Nethys that would have given us 6, which is rather unfortunate. But this does mean that as a repertoire caster, we now have as much wiggle room as something like a sorcerer would have, and it actually gets even better than that. At level 17, we still have Extreme Curse, but it's been completely changed. So now it just allows us to get our Cursebound up to 4, which sounds very underwhelming compared to what it used to do before, which I do want to state what it is. Also, we no longer get the additional focus spell or focus point, and we don't refocus all our focus spells on one refocus action, which does really suck. But whenever you're affected by your extreme curse, or in this case would be Cursebound 4, we no longer become doomed to. And also, once every 10 minutes, whenever we fail an attack or a skill check, perception check, or saving throw, we can't re-roll it to use the second result instead either. So we don't get any of the good sides to this, but we also don't get the downsides to this either. Now, overall, this has been not too bad. Mostly we're missing out on some focus points and the ability to restore multiple focus points on a short rest. Now, to be fair, I think Oracle and Psychic were really competing to be the focus spell caster. And I think now Paizo's made the decision that Psychic is going to be the focus spell caster. But instead, Oracle is going to be I get spells as general or as feats class, which, is really good. Oracle's a really solid caster. And we're coming up to my least favorite part of this video. But before we do, let's talk about the name changes. So there's been some name changes to some of the general class features. Resolve has been changed to Mysterious Resolve. Alertness has been changed to Oracular Senses. Lightning Reflexes was changed to Premonitions Reflexes. And Greater Resolve was changed to Greater Mysterious Resolve. They just added the word mysterious there. And in fact, they did the same thing for Resolve too. I don't know why they made these. Like every one of these videos, I keep going through this list because they change for almost every class. And I'm covering it because they have changed, and that's the point of the video. But why, Paizo? Why did you take these standard names we had for other classes and just given them these weird names? Like maybe they were associated with D&D 3.5 or something like that. But, man, I don't know. I don't think they needed to go this far. And in all honesty, it's not like it's a big deal. It just seems silly, especially when it comes to just adding mysterious to the name, because it just seems superfluous. But I don't know. That's where we are, right? So now, I'm going to talk about my least favorite part of this video. And that's because Paizo wanted to make Oracle have more interactions with its curse on this, in the sense that they wanted their players to have more of a choice and have more of a customizability. I'll tell you all now, the curses no longer have, or the mysteries no longer have the benefits that they used to have before. So the base benefit you had for picking a particular curse is now gone. In addition to that, the curses are purely negative. There's no longer any fun mechanics where you get a negative thing, but you get positive things also to interact with. So the various mysteries have been boiled down to a set of granted spells that you get added to your repertoire. We gained 2 new domains per mystery, and we got many of the we still got the skill associated with it, and now we have a feat that we get rather than the benefit, which I don't know is a good trade-off, honestly. Now, are oracles weaker? No, I would say on a whole, oracles are generally stronger. Their downsides are not as tricky to get around, some of them being almost completely avoidable, honestly. And the benefits to the feats that we get are really good. But now there's no longer individual mechanics you have to pick based on what subclass of Oracle you essentially pick. Now they're just kind of stat blocks in a sense. And while we now have now we get a cantrip, but also we get more spells added to our repertoire, which in addition to the divine access just gives us a lot of flexibility when it comes to our repertoire. I just don't know if it was worth the shift. Now, many of the actual effects, like ancestors, for instance, where you swapped around which ancestor of yours was talking in your head, that feature is actually a feats now, which we'll talk about much later. But I would say that like ancestors also used to give you 2 ancestry feats. And actually, you know what? Since I'm talking about ancestors now, let's get down to it. Let's talk about the mysteries. So let's talk about ancestors. So ancestors now gives us access to 2 new domains. We have duty and soul, which gives us a lot more variety when it comes to picking domain spells. We no longer get the extra ancestry feats that we would have gotten at level 1 and level 11, which is incredibly sad if you ask me. And we don't get to play with the fun spin the wheel, what ancestry or ancestor is telling us what to do this turn feature. That's all been removed. Now, I am going to cover the focus spells as well. Many of them did not change, but some did see some changes. For ancestors specifically, Ancestral Touch now does an additional D4. So it just does extra damage at the base level, which is pretty good. Ancestral Defense no longer changes your ancestor because that's no longer a feature that it interacts with, but otherwise acts the same. And that's it. This is all the ancestor has been changed to. Now, I guess I should mention as well, Ancestor also gives us access to, at first spell rank, we gain access to Ill Omen. At second, we get Ghostly Carrier. And at 5th, we get Dreaming Potential. So we just get more spells in our spell repertoire. We still use Society, and we have access to the Oracle feat Whispers of Weakness, which is a really good one, but I'm going to cover this later because another super tragic thing about this is we actually are going to share our Oracle feat with another one of the mysteries. So this is it. And of course the curse. Let's talk about the curse because that was a big thing as well. So now we have the Curse of Ancestral Meddling, which just makes it so every time we use the Cursebound traits, we gain a Clumsy with a strength or a value equal to our current Cursebound condition, which is potentially really bad because that directly affects our AC. And I know some of you liked the Ancestor like kind of martial build that you could have gone, even though it was very irregular. That's just no longer actually really a thing because this is damning. And being a squishy caster and getting Clumsy is pretty bad. Granted, that's situational based on whether the enemies can get to you. So as a curse, not the worst, or potentially the worst because you get crit more often, which can be bad. It really depends on the situation, and that's why I think Paizo decided to go this route, because now, if you're in a bad situation, you can just not use your curse and still get the benefits of the really strong revelation spells and other class features that Oracle has access to. But let's go ahead and talk about battle, and I think this one is going to be the most controversial out of them. So first of all, I'll make mention that we get access to two new domains, Destruction and Protection, which are particularly strong domains, so I think that's really cool. We no longer gain access to medium armor proficiency, so no more medium armor proficiency, and we don't really have good access to a attack bonus either anymore. So one of the focus spells actually did change, one of the revelation spells. The first one, in fact, which was weapon trance. Now, weapon trance makes us treat martial weapons as simple weapons for the sake of proficiency. And as well as being a focus spell that we have to use an action to cast, it's actually a sustained spell, so we have to sustain it. Granted, you automatically sustain the spell as a free action whenever you hit with a melee strike each round, but you need to hit with a melee strike, which means that if you miss, you better have an action on hand to sustain the spell, or this one falls off, which is really bad, to be honest. Weapon trance, I'm fine with weapon trance just being there and being a minute, and maybe that's even how I'll run it in my games. But the need to hit, especially with no additional benefits to weapons in the class, is very unfortunate. Another change to our revelation spells here was heroic feat, which has been changed now to revel in retribution. Heroic feat, what it used to do before was it would give us the use of a fighter feat for a action or two. Well, it was either a 2 or 3 action focus spell, and the 2 action would give us a 1 action fighter feat effect, and the 3 action would give us a 2 action fighter feat effect. And essentially, every time you cast a spell, you could choose a different one. Now, you do have to meet the prerequisites for it, but this gave us access in general to fighter feats that we could use to blend into our kind of more gishy play style, if that's the way you want to go. Revel and Retribution now just gives us reactive strike for a minute. Now, in a lot of situations, that's not actually that bad of a thing. And in addition to getting reactive strike for a minute, whenever you actively hit someone with your reactive strike, you get 5 temporary hit points when you do so, and the temporary hit points last for the spell's duration. And it happens every time, so you keep refreshing it. And every time the spell is heightened by 1 spell rank, the amount of hit points regained from the reactive strike increases by 1. Honestly, not bad. I don't know whether to think of this one as a good thing or bad thing. I think getting access to reactive strike is pretty cool. Also, it's not sustained, so once you use it, you have it pretty much for the rest of the fight. The temp HP is cool, but what's the playstyle here? What's the benefit that we were getting before? Because battle before, and to be fair, this feature actually has been moved to a later feat, which we'll talk about. But before, when we hit the moderate curse level, we got +2 status bonus to weapon and unarmed damage rolls, and we gain fast healing equal to half our level. And when we hit the major curse, the bonus damage increased to +6, and we got a +1 status bonus to our attack rolls, though we did become stupefied too. And our fast healing also became equal to our level. So we did have something that kind of pushed us in the direction you could cast Bless on yourself. Not Bless on yourself. You can cast Heroism on yourself to give yourself a better 2 hits than the curse would have given us. We could have been an upfront fighter with a fast healing that was really, really good. And now that's kind of been taken for a focus spell that allows us to maybe keep martial weapon proficiency if we're lucky enough on our attack rolls, and for a reactive strike. Now, I will state, because the other 2 changed, battlefield persistence stayed the same, so you don't have to worry about that. And I do gotta say, battle has probably the easiest curse to work with. So battle now gives us access to the shield cantrip, which it did before, sure strike, telekinetic maneuver, and weapon storm, which are some pretty cool combat-y, weapony fighting spells to add to our repertoire. And we get oracular warning, which is not my favorite of the oracle feats, but it's not terrible. But the Curse of the Mortal Warrior is genuinely one of the easiest curses to get around, which ironically makes this particular mystery really good for a lot of the more castery-based Cursebound feats, which is really silly. Essentially, we just get weakness to spells. So at the first level, we get a weakness 2 to any damage dealt by spells, and any immunity or resistance we have to spells are suppressed. At the second rank, we get a -1 status penalty to our saving throws. At the third rank, the weakness increases to our level, which is insane. And at the fourth rank, the status penalty to saving throws against spells increases to -2. Now, if we end up against a caster at some point, then yeah, we're screwed. But casters aren't very common, are actually like a very uncommon enemy type. So you can just blow all your Cursebound stuff and really not have to worry about it, because in most fights, that's not going to be a thing. So, battle is very nerfed, in my opinion. Granted, it has some interesting potential to it. I don't want to be overly negative. And the thing is that we're trading some of the benefits for choosing our subclasses for essentially curse customization, which we'll get to in the feats. So I will say, if you're already angry, please hold your horses, calm down a little bit, wait till we get to the feats, and then when we get to the end of the feats, then make your decision, because they do bring some of these features that some of these mysteries are known for back. So you can get access to them. You just have to select them with a feat. Now, Bones, in my opinion, honestly got the biggest buff. Like, it doesn't have any of the unique features that it used to have before. You can no longer just give yourself negative healing, which honestly isn't even that good of a feature. Granted, that's also a feat that we can select later on. But Bones, for the most part, its curse really sucked. A lot of its features were not super great. It was really hard to turn into a very interesting play style. And I feel like it's just honestly not so hurt by the changes. So Bones now gives us access to 2 new domains on top of what we had before. We now have Decay and Vigil in addition. Our cantrip actually did change. It used to be Stabilize. Now it's Void Warp. And we gain access to Grim Tendrils, False Vitality, and Ghostly Weapon. 2 of those being particularly really good spells to add to our spell list. And of its revelation spells, the only one that really saw any major change was Claim Undead, and it was actually buffed. It's just better now. So now, the enemy gets confused, 1, when it succeeds on the check. And if they do manage to break free after failing the initial check, they become stunned 1 and confused 1, which is really good. Now, we do lose access to the poison resistance that we would have got, which is not a super big deal. If you ask me, poison wasn't super common. And the ability to auto-recover from any kind of recovery rolls. But if you're asking me very legitimately if it's better or not, I say Bones is generally better now. I'll also state that the Oracle feat that we gain is Nudge the Scales, which we share with life and is more based on healing. So we'll look at it here in a little bit. It's not a bad one for sure. I just don't know if you were a Bones Oracle before, if that was the direction you really wanted to go. But yeah, so that's what we got with Bones. All right, so before we move on, let's talk about Curse of Living Death. This curse is a little weird and kind of confusing. So first of all, at the first stage, Cursebound 1, you gain a weakness 2 to Vitality and Void damage. Now, you are hurt by both Vitality and Void damage, even if one or the other normally has no effect on you. And any immunity or resistance you have to Vitality or Void is suppressed. Now, Heal Spell is a Vitality effect, but it only does damage to undead targets. So unless you're considered undead, it doesn't do Vitality damage to you. And it only says we have a weakness to Vitality and Void damage. So I have to assume that we are actually able to be healed just fine, but creatures that could damage us with Vitality damage now can, and we have a weakness to it. The more crippling part is Cursebound 2, when we get a -1 status penalty to Fortitude saves. Not always relevant, but can be really nasty in some situations. At Cursebound 3, our weakness to Vitality and Void damage increases to 5+ your level, which is way higher than it was before. And at level 4, your status penalty to Fortitude saving throws increases to -2. So overall, some pretty nasty effects for Curse of Living Death, but honestly, somewhat avoidable. In some situations, I can see a lot of situations where you don't have to worry about these, but I can also see some situations where you're definitely not going to want to have your curse available. So, that being the case, it's a good thing. Like, Bones got generally a buff, in my opinion. I think it overall works better. And now if you choose not to use your bone stuff, it's like whatever. And if you do choose to use it, then it's kind of whatever. So bones overall gets a big buff. Now we have to talk about Cosmos, and I am so sorry, Cosmos players, because you no longer get the physical resistance that you used to have before. It's sad, and I know a lot of you really enjoyed that part of your build. You enjoyed playing the plastic bag tank style of build, and now since the curse now just works different than it used to before, no longer do you get access to the lightweight feats that you would have gotten before when your curse got more severe. Also sad. Granted, also turned into a feat later. If you can tell a trend, most of these effects have been turned into feats. So what Cosmos has now is we have new domains, Nothingness and Star. Our Spray of Stars did get an additional D4 damage, which is pretty good. So that's actually just a buff. And actually another buff, Moonlight Bridge, our greater revelation, actually also got buffed. Before, it was just immune to things like precision damage, but now it's immune to all damage except for force, spirit, and damage from strikes with the Ghost Touch property rune. So overall, honestly, some big buffs. Now, we also get access to Dizzying Colors, Darkness, and Moon Frenzy, which are all some pretty decent spells. And we have Oracular Curse. Again, probably my least favorite of the curses, so another unfortunate thing for Cosmos. So yeah, Cosmos, honestly, I know so many people enjoy the Cosmos playstyle, and while that has been converted into feats, it's been converted into feats, so it's no longer really relevant to whether you pick Cosmos or not. Now, the curse for Cosmos is actually kind of the same. So we got the negative benefits, but not the good benefits with the curse, which is kind of silly. So when you have your Cursebound condition, you are enfeebled by an amount equal to your Cursebound value, which was essentially the same as it was before. And you take a status penalty to saves and DCs against all forms of force movement against equal to your Cursebound value, which again was more or less the same. So we got to keep the lame stuff. Didn't get much of the good stuff. You can see why a lot of people are not going to be a fan of Oracle. Granted, again, Oracle is a good class. Don't make the negative things here dissuade you. Oracle is an incredibly, probably one of the most, if not the most powerful caster. It just lost a lot of the love. It lost a lot of the flavor that it used to have, at least with the mysteries, which I find to be incredibly sad. Flames, I'm a little bit more on the positive side for. I really didn't like Flames' curse effects, making everything obscured to you, more or less. That was kind of annoying. Granted, it didn't apply when you used a fire ability, which was kind of cool, and you were concealed to everyone else, so there were definitely some interesting counterplays. But when the curse got to the end, when you got the cool fire aura damage, you were also dying at a rapid rate, which I feel like, you know, for a squishy caster is not a great thing. But I would say Flames honestly might just feel better now in general. And for Flames in general, I have to state that any reference to produce flame, even the cantrip here, has been changed to ignition. So even in Flaming Fusillade, which used to give you a one action produce flames, now give you one action ignition, which whether you like the new ignition versus produce flame or not, this is what we got. We also don't get the bonuses to reflex saving throws. I don't know what really, like, you would have figured that would have been a Cosmos thing, but Flames had that. So we don't get that. Oh, well, not a super big deal. Not really the playstyle that I felt like Flames really wanted to push you towards, but it is what it is. I guess you can no longer fireball yourself as easily. And I mean, speaking of which, our granted spells are Breathe Fire, Blazing Bolt, and Fireball. So kind of silly now that I think about it, that it got removed. But this is what we have now. I didn't mention the new domains, so now we have access to Dust and Sun, or Star, sorry, not Sun, Star. We had Sun before. Dust is okay. Star has some cool stuff in it, though, so I would count that as a good thing. The curse for Flames is now Curse of Engulfing Flames. I use this one as a reference all the time because it's the easiest to show a negative example for. It's actually not that bad. So whenever you get your Cursebound value, you take amount of persistent fire damage, so fire damage at the end of your turn. equal to your current Cursebound value. You also burn bright like a torch, which is kind of a good thing, I suppose, though maybe not in some situations. Though I will state, like all the curses, the effects tend to stop when you start refocusing. And flames, this is the case. So when you start refocusing, you no longer are burning. And if you fall unconscious, you actually stop burning as well. So you actually can't accidentally kill yourself unless you are ignoring the fact that you're on fire, or you're in a situation where you absolutely can't refocus. But even if you do drop to 0, you actually just go to dying, and hopefully your friends can help you. So honestly, not bad. And as your HP scales, the damage here definitely doesn't. So once you get to like level 5, the damage from Curse of Engulfing Flames is pretty negligible. So honestly, Curse of Flames is in a pretty good spot. Life, though, on the other hand, is one that I feel like a lot of people are going to miss how it used to be before. So you no longer get the insane healing benefits that you used to get through life when your curse got higher and higher. Though your curse is still pretty outrageous, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. We got 2 new domains with life. We got Pain and Soul. Pain has some interesting stuff in it, and so does Soul, so not terrible ones. Our cantrip changed to Vitality Lash. And I was actually wrong before. I'm sure some of you are. I probably made a message, but in Bones, I said it used to be Stabilize. No, Life used to have Stabilize. Now we have Vitality Lash, which is okay. Stabilize, I don't think was a good cantrip really in general. It's super easy to just do some minor healing to essentially get the same effects of Stabilize. But, you know, here we are. Vitality Lash, good, I guess, in some situations, but of the cantrips, not a solid choice, to be fair, because it only works really against creatures hurt by positive damage. Now, we do gain access to Soothe, False Vitality, and Grisly Growths, all which are really good spells, so I think they're very solid. But we also just no longer get the really good class benefit, which was the ability to increase our class HP to 10 rather than 8, which does suck because we still have lifelink, which very much eats away at our own life force, essentially. And with our curse, the extra HP would have been much more like wanted. And that did not actually return through a feat, to my knowledge. So life feels like it's in a slightly worse situation. Now, Nudge the Scales, a pretty good feat and perfect for life. So something to keep in mind. But let's talk about the curse because it's pretty gnarly. So the curse now, life is constantly seeping from you. Magical effects that restore hit points to you take a status penalty equal to your level times your Cursebound value to the number of HP you recover. That's insane. So if you're Cursebound 2, it's twice your level. That's a significant amount. Early game, not so much, but later game, that can be really rough. Like level 5 at Cursebound 2, that's minus 10 to any healing you can get, which is very significant. Now, this is only for magical effects, so you can still take things like Elixir of Life, so you're probably going to want to have those on hand. Now, I'm going to be upfront with y'all. Lore was never one of my favorite mysteries, which is so strange because I love things typically that revolve around lore. But it was never really one of my favorite ones. Not a lot changed with it. Now, we used to gain an extra spell slot, which was really, really cool for lore. You may have that now as a general class feature so that you might get the same effect. Granted, it's no longer special for you, sure, but maybe. I'm not sure. I don't think that's the case, but the jury is out. Paizo needs an errata, unfortunately, before we're going to know for sure. But we no longer get the free recall knowledge checks, and we don't eventually become able to understand all language, granted without the ability to speak, which is actually, the curse is still very close to the same as it was before. So a lot of the downsides with none of the good sides, very typical for some of these changes. Now, what lore got was we got access to magic and secrecy, which is actually crazy that we didn't have access to magic before. We also have Read Aura, which is the same as it was before. We also gain access to the granted spells Mind Link, Hypercognition, and Neverminds. And we do get access to Whispers of Weakness, which is a really, really good Oracle feat. And I think I forget to mention, but Flames got Foretell Harm. I know it showed up on screen, but I failed to mention it. So yeah, Flames got Foretell Harm, which is not good in my opinion. So let's talk about the curse. So we get the Curse of Torrential Knowledge. So you take a status penalty to will checks or perception checks and will saving throws equal to your Cursebound value. And if you ever become Cursebound 4, which is the maximum you would get, you additionally can't speak, use any linguistic effects, or otherwise communicate with your allies and your stupefied one. That's really, really bad. Getting Cursebound 4 is something you absolutely don't want, because stupefied's already really terrible. And for a spellcaster, like, essentially, you're just capped out at 3. You get to 3 and then you stop. You don't do anymore because 4 is a little too far. So lore, I didn't really like it before, and to be honest, I don't really like it much now, but at least getting Whispers of Weakness as their Oracle feat is a huge benefit. So, there's some silver linings to these clouds. Now, the last one we're going to talk about is Tempest, but before we do, this does put Oracle in the kind of really bad situation like Witch was, where now anything that wasn't in the remaster, so the other mysteries, which was Ash and Time, are now just 100% different and essentially unplayable for the class. So if you want to use either of those, you need to either wait for an errata or just play Old Oracle, which, to be fair, I think a lot of people are going to be playing Old Oracle after this one. But now let's talk about Tempest. Now, Tempests, I feel like didn't lose a ton either. Getting the benefit of just perceiving through fog and clouds is okay, I suppose. And it did make some spells very fun to use with Tempest, but not a big deal. Now, we do lose eventually when we get to our major curse, the Electric Thorns ability that we used to have. And we no longer deflect projectiles with our curse, which also kind of sucks. But those are super big benefits, and considering that before we mostly just got weakness to electricity, which admittedly was super uncommon, but we also created a big aura of difficult terrain, which could be hazardous to our allies as well. I feel like Tempests is a little bit better off, if you ask me personally. We still get Electric Arc, so you can all breathe a sigh of relief, but now we also get access to Thunder Strike, Hydraulic Torrent, and Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning being really, really good. We got access to the 2 new domains of Cold and Lightning. Lightning being very, very good. And we gained Foretell Harm, which is okay. Not my favorite Oracle feat, Now, let's talk about the Curse, though. The Curse is at the first stage, Lightning is drawn to you. You gain the weakness, too, so we get still that penalty here. And any additional effects that are targeting for metal treat you as if you're wearing metal. And any immunity or resistance you have to spells and effects, to such spells and effects, is suppressed. So we still have the negative sides there. At Cursebound 2, we get a -2 circumstance penalty to range attack rolls that we make, which we had before, but now it doesn't apply to enemies, which kind of sucks. Granted, something easily avoidable, I have to add. At Cursebound 3, the weakness is equal to 5 plus our level, which is a lot higher. And at Cursebound 4, the Raging Winds causes us to take a -10 status penalty to all of our speeds. All of them, which is really, really bad. Not as bad as lore, but really bad. You're not going to be moving anywhere anytime soon, pretty much. So that is the base of the mystery changes. Now, many of the mystery benefits that we did see before are now feats you can select, and they can be selected by any mystery. So you do get to customize your curses, kind of in a sense, like more than you were before. But I do feel like now the mysteries have been more homogenized and less unique. And now there's just not this idea of I select this play style when I'm playing Oracle. Oracle functions better. Oracle is stronger for the changes, but they did lose a bit of their uniqueness that we now have to fight back with with our feats, which kind of feels bad. But we're going to move on to the feats. But before we do move on to the feats, I have to say, if you're enjoying any Pathfinder content on any channel, leave a like. You can leave a like here or on anyone else's channel. The only thing I'm concerned about is getting more TTRPG content out there, so every like on anyone's channel helps. Granted, if you like my content specifically, subscribe. I'm going to be covering all the classes here every day. Every day I'm working to get you guys a new video for probably the next 2 weeks. So if you want to see all the changes in Player Core 2, I highly recommend subscribing to the channel. But all right, let's go ahead and talk about the feats. All right, let's start off with Foretell Harm. So this one was gained by Tempest in Flames. And what it does is, as a free action once per round, when our previous action was to cast a non-cantrip spell that dealt damage, at the beginning of our target's next turn, they take an amount of damage equal to twice the triggering spell's rank in a seemingly random misfortune events. They randomly their clothes caught on fire and they took a little bit more burning damage, that kind of stuff. The type of damage is dependent on the spell, and if our spell does multiple types of damage, it's your choice. But once an enemy has been affected by this one, they are temporarily immune for 24 hours. So Foretell Harm is not bad. It's essentially a meta magic kind of feat that's a free action. Granted, it increases our Cursebound trait, which could be good, could be bad, to do extra damage. Now, twice spell rank is okay. Okay early game. It starts falling off pretty fast because by the time you're level 10, you get 5th rank spells, so you're doing potentially 10 extra damage, which could be good. And if it triggers an enemy weakness, it's really, really good. Foretell Harm, I think, is okay in general. I don't know if it's necessarily worth increasing our Cursebound over other effects, but I guess up through the earlier parts of the game, it's not too terrible. And if we're not spending it on anything else, then why not, right? So we just do some extra damage, which is pretty all right. Next, I want to talk about Nudge the Scales. Now, I don't think I actually prefaced this video this way, but I just had the thought. If I don't mention anything changing in this video, nothing has changed. So if you're concerned about any of that, nothing has changed. But anyway, back to Nudge the Scales. So this one is a singular action with the Cursebound trait. You restore a number of hit points equal to 2 plus double your level to one creature within 30 feet. A pretty good effect, honestly. I mean, starting out at level 1, that's 4 HP, which is pretty significant. In addition, you can meditate during your daily preparations to place yourself on one side of the scales. This is essentially the same effect that Bones had before, where you can now choose to either count as a living creature and be healed by vitality, or count as a dead creature and gain void healing. So very interesting, makes it good for certain kinds of campaigns. Nudge the Scales was given to both life and Bones, which makes a lot of sense. So both of them getting a pretty decent heal overall that it just increases your Cursebound value by 1. So I would say, honestly, a really good feat. Next, let's talk about Oracular Warning. Now, this one used to be a level 10 feat, and honestly, it's just way better now. What it used to be before is when a combat started, you could give one ally or 2 allies, if you're a legendary in religion, advantage on a fortune effect on their initiative rolls. Now, what it does is, as a free action when we start combat, so you start off the combat cursed, for better or worse, each ally within 20 feet gains a +2 status bonus to their initiative rolls and gains temp HP equal to half your level, which lasts for 1 minute. Now, if you're Cursebound 2, the bonus increases to +3, and if you're Cursebound 3, the bonus increases to +4. It doesn't say 4 because you can't use them when they're at 4, so you're ever going to see these be max 3. So I don't know why you would ever start a battle being way more cursed and potentially at your max, but technically that is a thing. I would say this one's generally okay, but I mean, what's Scout for anyway? Granted, I understand Scout gives a circumstance bonus to it, but like, and the temp HP is okay, even though it's half your level. So most at level 20, 10 starting temp HP, which is not a lot. I feel like Oracular Warning, even though it does stack with other initiative things that are circumstance anyway, is not a super big buff in my opinion. But hey, you know what? Maybe it just really makes your team go first. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? And they gave Oracular Warning to two of the probably most dicked over of the mysteries with Battle and Cosmos. So the Battle and Cosmos players were already really feeling this one, and they got at least my least favorite feat. So that really sucks. And finally, we have Whispers of Weakness. Now, this one is actually insanely good. This is actually just a converted version of Visions of Weakness, which was a revelation spell we picked up at level 4. We now just get starting out with lore and ancestry mysteries, which is really cool. Otherwise, it works exactly the same way it did before, but it's no longer a revelation spell. So, overall, a very good one. Probably the best one, in my opinion. But, you know, you can make arguments for Foretell Harm if you're really into the damage, or Nudge the Scales if you want to do some healing. Sorry, Oracular Warning again. But, yeah, so that's all the changes with the first level feats. We actually didn't lose really much of anything, which is very interesting. So when I made the other videos before, a lot of feats kind of got removed for space purposes or whatever. Oracle, like many of the casters in the player cores, mostly just got new feats because they didn't have that many feats to begin with. Now, they do actually have a decent amount of feats from other books, but the remaster is mostly taking from player core and advanced player's guide. So anything outside of that is kind of outside the spectrum of the remaster project. Something to keep in mind. But yeah, so we're mostly going to just see some new feats moving forward. At level 2, we get Meddling Futures. This will probably look familiar to some of you. Yeah, it's the Ancestry Curse. I'm just going to spill the beans here. As a free action, you roll a d4, and your next action must be the type of action determined by the spirit that is possessing you. But rather than being a d4 with 4 being a you pick, we now have 4 different spirits rather than ancestors that we had before. Now, it has to be the next action the spirit guides you to, but if you can do a different action with that DC 6 flat check, which is better than it would have turned out towards the later game for ancestors. So yeah, so now we have on a 1, you get Warrior, +1 status bonus to your attack rolls and +2 status bonus to your damage, or +6 status bonus to damage if you're at least Cursebound 3. So now we're starting to see the Cursebound amplifying some of these effects. If you roll a 2, you get Adept, which gives you the bonus to perception checks and skill actions. You get a +1 status bonus to these checks, or +2 if you're Cursebound 3. Sage, if you roll a 3, where you gain a status bonus to the spell's damage or healing equal to the spell's rank, or the spell's rank +3 if you're at least Cursebound 3, which is just a worse sorceress potency, but it's just on the table, so more potentially extra damage. I don't know, you know, it just does more damage if your next action's a spell. And then 4, we have a new one called Wanderer. Now, your next action must be a stride action, fly, climb, or burrow. It does not say swim, which is really funny. You get a +10 status bonus to your speed for the action, or a +20 foot speed if you have a Cursebound 3. So, Meddling Futures is, if you want to have that ability, you can kind of have it. Granted, it's Cursebound, so you could blow your whole load really easy on your first 3 actions if you really want to early game. I don't like Meddling Features as a feat. It was fun as a class ability to play around with, but now you just have that randomness, and and the bonuses, it only applies in the beginning. You can only do this 2 times to get your Cursebound to 1 and then to get your Cursebound to 2. So you can only do it twice, which is very sad. And it's just not the same gameplay mechanic you had to work around before. It's now you're trying to randomly get a buff to something you may or may not want. Now, if you like just if you have a hard time deciding on what you want to do on your turns, sure, meddling features might actually be good for you. But most of the time, I just don't see it being nearly as good as it used to be. Next, we have one of the silliest feats here, knowledge of shapes. You know what a triangle is. You know what a square is. And you know that a circle has no corners. It's silly. But what it does is kind of cool, maybe. So it's a Cursebound feat. It's a free action, and it lets you use either Reach Spell or Widen Spell as a free action. So you can get Reach Spell or Widen Spell as a free action, freeing your turn up a little bit. Really cool. I do like this one. If you're going flames, this one is probably the way to go because now many of your area fire damage spells, which there are plenty of, can get enhancements to their range and as a free action on your turn rather than all three of your actions to cast a spell, which allows you to reposition for cones easier or just to do some other effect on your turn. Use a revelation spell. I really do like Knowledge of Shapes, even though the name is really silly. So Knowledge of Shapes, funny spell name or funny feat name, and a pretty good effect, honestly. Another new feat here is actually immediately after it in the book, Thousand Visions. This is essentially the flame curse effect, only good sides, kind of. So as a free action, you gain a special vision that within 30 feet, all concealed creatures no longer need a flat check from you to hit, and you're not off guard to any creatures that are hidden from you. And a creature that is hidden from you, you only need to do a successful DC 5 flat check in order to target the creature. Though, similar to how Flames was before, anything beyond that 30 feet becomes obscured to you, making all your senses imprecise beyond that range, which for all intents and purposes means that things outside that range are automatically concealed to you, and you don't get the benefits of your concealed bonuses that you would within your 30 feet. Now, this vision persists for a minute. This is a genuinely really good feat. There are so many situations where you're in hallways, caves, or whatever, where an enemy getting more than 30 feet away from you is really hard. Granted, this does mean you have to kind of be within 30 feet of an enemy, but concealed condition is really rough, and being able to just pierce that, and it lasts for a minute. It's not even like some of the other Cursebound features, which it's just a thing that you get for one action. This lasts for a minute. So I do think Thousand Visions is genuinely really good. So I will state that Divine Access, I mentioned this before, was removed from a level 4 feat, and we now get it at level 11. It kind of sucks that it's kind of a nerf. Well, it's not a nerf, I would say. I think it balances out because no longer do we need to spend a feat to gain access to these extra spells, but now we can't get them as early as level 4. And a large number of them we would get before level 11. So we kind of miss out on some extra spell opportunity, but now we don't need to spend a feat on it. I think it's either way you could look at it, could be good or bad. I like the way it is now, but I can see why people would have liked it before. Another new feat here at level 6, we have Gifted Power. This gives us an extra spell slot at our highest rank, which we can use only to cast one of our mysteries granted spells, heightened to that rank. Now, if we have Divine Access or the Mysterious Repertoire feat, which is still in here, you can cast spells that you learned from those abilities using the additional spell slot from Gifted Power as well. So Gifted Power, genuinely pretty good. We gain an extra spell slot at our highest rank. Now, it's a very small spell selection, sure, but we're a repertoire caster and we're already used to that. So genuinely, Gifted Power, extra high-level spell slot? Yeah, heck yeah. Why wouldn't you select this one? It's really, really good. At level 8, Debilitating Dichotomy is no longer a revelation spell, but has been turned into another Cursebound feat. So again, another situation of a focus spell being turned into just a Cursebound feat so that we can use it with our Cursebound feature rather than our focus points. So honestly, not bad. And debilitating dichotomy is a pretty decent focus spell to have overall. So now that we get this as a feat that uses a different resource, I mean, all the more bang for our buck, honestly. Surging Might has been moved down to level 8 rather than level 10, so a little bit of a buff there. And rather than allowing us to pierce through the resistances of chaotic, evil, good, lawful, negative, or positive, since most of these things don't exist anymore, now it applies mostly to just spirit, vitality, and void. Now, the spirit is the one that's really good here. Spirit damage is insanely good, way better than alignment ever used to be. So the spirit damage is the one you're going to want to keep your eye on. So Surging Might, genuinely really good. And it's a spell shape, so very solid choice. Water Walk is new. This was part of the features that we used to get from Cosmos when you got to a high enough curse stage. So now, as a general feat, this is not even a Cursebound feature. When you become Cursebound 1, you can stride across liquids that would normally not support your weight, though you do need to end your movement on a surface that can support your weight or you fall into the liquid. When you become Cursebound 2, which is honestly not that hard, you get Water Walk. Because Cursebound is so easy to get, and some curses are really not that bad, like battles, it's a free water walk that you can get pretty much any time. That's genuinely pretty good. So honestly, I genuinely like this one. I think it's really good. I think Cursebound 2 is a very easy to obtain thing inside and outside of combat and can give you a new dynamic to approaching some situations. And because Cursebound is so easy to increase now, getting access to this is very quick and easy. So Water Walk is insanely good. Now, at level 10, we do get some unique feats that are dedicated to some of the mysteries. First, we have Roll the Bones of Fate. This is a level 10 feat that applies for the Bones or Lore mystery, which is pretty interesting. We can use this action once per minute. It has the Cursebound trait. All of these will. So we roll a d4 as we look into the fates. On a 1, you and an ally within 30 feet can roll twice on your next attack roll or skill check, taking the higher result as a fortune effect. On 2, you get bad, but bad for your enemy. So one creature you are observing within 30 feet must succeed on a will save against your spellcasting DC. On a failure, the target must roll twice on their next attack roll or skill check and that takes at least one action to perform and take the worst effect. This is a misfortune effect. Sorry, my language got a little mixed up there. I think it's written a little weird. It says roll twice on their next attack roll or skill check that takes at least one action to perform, taking the lower result. There you go. I just got mixed up. So 1, good for me and ally. 2, enemy needs to make a save against us or they get a misfortune effect. 3, mixed, you gain the benefits of rolling both a 1 and a 2. So you and ally get a bonus and enemy needs to make a roll or gets a penalty. 4, screw everyone. Cursed possibilities. This one's a bit of a mess. So every creature within 30 feet of you, when you perform this augury, must roll twice on their next attack roll or skill check, though it's not as simple as just selecting high or low. So if the highest number is odd, they take the lower result. But if the highest number is even, they take the higher results, getting the misfortune or fortune effects respectively. So Roll the Bones is really funny. I think this is more of a detriment than it is a benefit. Granted, 3 out of the 4 rolls are good, but a 25% chance to screw over potentially any of your allies within 30 feet is really rough. And being a caster, you're likely to be within 30 feet of an ally at any given time. So, yeah, I don't know if Roll the Bones is honestly worth it. A 25% chance to just screw everything up seems really rough. Granted, a 75% chance of doing something good. There's gambling players out there who are going to absolutely love this one. Watch out for those players. Another new feat is the Dead Walk. Now, this requires that you have either the ancestors or battle mysteries. So, obviously this is one for any players who want to team up in combat with their ghosts, because what it does is for 2 actions with the Cursebound trait, so your curse increases, you manifest 2 warriors within a 30-foot emanation of you. Now, the wording here is bad. It says, 2 ghostly warriors manifest within a 30-foot emanation of you, and each attempt a strike against an enemy using your spell attack modifier and then disappear. They don't disappear until the start of your next turn. They don't strike and then disappear. They actually disappear at the start of your next turn. So that's poorly worded, and that's going to confuse a lot of people. Now, the cool thing about these warriors is, one, the damage they deal is 4d6 spirit damage, which is a really good damage type, and the warriors can flank with each other or with one of your allies. And if your Cursebound value is 2 when you use this, you summon 3 of them, and if it was 3, you summon 4 of them. And none of this applies map because you are not making strikes. The ghosts are. So you get to make 2 to 4 strikes, each dealing 4d6 spirit damage with no map for 2 actions. That's really good. That's an insanely good feature. Now, obviously, once you max out your Cursebound value, you can't use this anymore. But if you start off a battle fresh, you can use this 3 times, progressively getting stronger as you go. So honestly, this is really, really good. We were talking about unhealthy players before. Trial by Skyfire is another one of those. Another one you got to watch out for your oracles. So this one is in action with the Cursebound trait, obviously. This one goes to Cosmos and Flames Mystery. And you create in a blazing emanation around you, 10-foot emanation, a set of falling stars, flames, whatever, that deal 2d6 fire damage to all creatures within the emanation, including the Oracle themselves. Now, this damage is based on a basic reflex saving throw, and it persists for a minute. Now, you can suppress this effect by spending an action to sustain to do so, but you cannot dismiss it. And this is automatically suppressed if your character falls unconscious, so Now, this effect actually gets stronger based on what your Cursebound value is. So if you become Cursebound 3 or 4, then the emanation increases to 15 feet, and the damage increases to 4d6. So you just get this aura effect of falling stars that you yourself are dodging for your life for every turn, but so are the enemies. Funny, silly, real goofy. I know a lot of players who are going to love this kind of feat. It's going to cause problems. Granted, at least the emanation is small enough where they're not likely to hit their allies. And of course, hopefully the player is at least reasonable enough to not do this with allies nearby. But who knows? Maybe they want to team up with the rogue or the swashbuckler who can crit succeed on a success, in which case, hey, you know what? It might be a really good effect. Constantly damaging all creatures in an emanation around you is really cool, but you are a squishy caster, and the initial emanation is 10 feet, which is not a lot of distance. So, be careful, or not. This is not a feat in which you would be careful. What am I saying? So yeah, Trial by Skyfire is really cool and kind of silly. The final one we're going to talk about here for level 10 is Waters of Creation. Now, this one is for the Tempest and Life mysteries, which I do like that they split up life and bones. That's something I really appreciate. Another Cursebound one with 2 actions, and you release a 15-foot emanation that heals all creatures 5d6 hit points. Now, this does have the Vitality trait, so it doesn't work on undead. Important to know. And this one heightens as you level up. So every even level after this one, the amount restored increases by a d6. Now, if you are Cursebound 3 when you use Waters of Creation, the amount healed increases to d8s rather than being d6s. A really good healing ability, and it's cool that it got added to Tempest, which is very interesting. So overall, I'm genuinely happy with these features. I think they're really cool, and I think if Paizo develops more feats similar to the ones that we just went through, Oracle is going to be in a good place. I think the missing of the playstyles is very rough, but if we get more feats targeting specific mysteries to do cool things, I feel like it will be better for the class overall. Hopefully getting stuff before level 10, that's a little rough, but still, I think this is genuinely good stuff here. At level 12, we get Epiphany at the Crossroads, and this is genuinely really good because this one isn't even Cursebound. This is a free action you can use once per day and when your turn begins. Now, if you start your turn unconscious and with the dying condition, you gain the effects of the augury spell, you lose your dying condition, and you regain a number of hit points equal to twice your level and can stand as a free action. So a free action allows you to get a spell effect, augury, regain a number of hit points equal to twice your level, which at this level would be 24, and standing up all at the beginning of your turn. Genuinely really good and increases the survivability of Oracle pretty substantially, which honestly, with some of these curses, I can completely understand wanting to select this feat. So yeah, a really good feat, actually. Moving on to 14, we have Forestall Curse. It's actually buffed now because it's no longer an action to forestall your curse. It's a free action. And it works with the Cursebound ability rather than with Revelation spells. So yeah, it's been brought up to date. Still once per day, but now it's a free action rather than an action. So overall, a buff, and one you're definitely going to want to consider because the Dead Walk, being able to use that multiple times would be really sick, especially at the Cursebound 3 value. So, you know, there's some really cool combos with this one. Lighter Than Air. Now, this one is actually requires that you have Water Walk, so you know it's going to be good. Now, when you have the Cursebound condition, you just fly. You get flight at level 4 anytime you're Cursebound, which is insane. And if you're ever Cursebound 3 or greater, you gain a plus 10 status bonus to your fly speed. Lighter Than Air is really, really cool. Now, because it's tied to Water Walk, I don't necessarily see this as a must-take feat because 2 feet tax is a little much for that, but I do think it's really cool, and I do really like Water Walk, so Lighter Than Air is an insanely good feat, and I really, really like this one. Revelation's Focus is a new feat, but not for a good reason. Since we no longer refocus all our focus points as just a general class feature, we need to select a feat to refocus multiple focus points, which kind of sucks. So yeah, that's we have this feat now. Yay. Conduit of Void and Vitality. Really cool feat name. This one is also Cursebound, and it is 2 actions. Now, any Oracle Mystery can select this one. I don't know why they put that, but it is here. And the requirements for this one is you have Heal or Harm as a signature spell and an available spell slot to cast it with. So you use these 2 actions, you expend the spell slot to cast a 3-action version of the Heal or Harm spell. Now, if the spell restores hit points to one or more creatures, one of those creatures get an additional amount of hit points equal to a d8 times your Cursebound value. Pretty good. If the spell damages one or more creatures, then one of those creatures are harmed by this spell by an additional amount of damage equal to a d8 times your Cursebound value. So this one's really good. If you have heal, you're going up against a bunch of undead, you can now use a 2-action, 3-action heal. A weird sentence, but for 2 actions, you get the 3-action effect of heal. And one of your allies, probably in that range, or yourself, gets extra healing. And one of those undead get extra damage. So I genuinely like this one. If you are selecting Heal or Harm as one of your primary spells with signature spell, I think this is a really solid pickup to take. Granted, it depends on your campaign, as creatures that take vitality damage are rare, but hey, you could also do the Harm version if you want to go full cannon with it, which I think is quite valuable as well. So you want to run into the enemies, do a big burst AoE damage, and one of them gets particularly screwed over. I think that's pretty cool too. So Conduit of Void and Vitality, a really good feat. Diverse Mystery was brought up to essentially the new changes with Oracle. So it does the same thing. You still choose an initial or advanced revelation spell from one of the other mysteries, but this spell gains the Cursebound trait for you, and when you cast it, you gain the Cursebound 1 effects of the mystery in addition to your normal curse effects. Though any ability that lets you use a Cursebound ability without increasing the severity of your curse, for instance, Force All Curse, also prevents you from gaining this. So just casting it isn't going to give you the curse if you do use Force All Curse, which is important to know. Now, you can't cast your chosen revelation spell if any of the same thing as before. If its mystery effect counters any of your mystery effects, which I don't think any of them interact in this way, but kind of future-proofing. But I wanted to mention this particular feat because now it's just been kind of brought up, and because it used to give you a revelation spell before, that revelation spell actually still gives you the Cursebound. So it works exactly the same, but I wanted to make mention of it because it does kind of special case change how revelation spells work. Similar to the last feat, Blaze of Revelation also got proper updating to now match how Oracle currently works, and it was buffed because now you can use any of the domain spells, because if you took Domain Acumen, for instance, it treats those domain spells as revelation spells. It now no longer excludes anything outside of your standard revelation spells. So those domain spells are completely valid for Blaze of Revelation, which, by the way, is an insanely powerful feat. You can just fire off focus points like there's no tomorrow. And I gotta say, with things like the Fire Ray from the Flame domain, this is really, really powerful. So yeah, Blaze of Revelation getting a massive buff. And kind of paradoxically, for level 20, we have Paradoxical Mystery, and it does kind of the opposite. So the spell that you picked up from this one, it says each day during your daily preparations, choose one basic or advanced domain spell from any domain from Player Core, one of the domains granted to you from your mystery, another domain to which you have access, or an initial or advanced revelation spell from any other mystery. This revelation spell, and you gain this spell as a revelation spell until your next daily preparations, it doesn't gain the Cursebound trait anymore. So now you can just, as a level 20 feat, which I don't know if I would like this one personally. I feel it's kind of not worth the level 20 pickup, but maybe that's just me. Now it doesn't become Cursebound, so you don't have to worry about it and you can use it freely. You know, like with Blaze of Revelation. So yeah, as you can tell, this video has been a bit perplexing. I started this video off pretty unhappy. And when I got to the feats, I'm genuinely happy. So what's that mean for Oracle? And what are my final thoughts now that we've gone through everything? I think Paizo missed on this one. I think taking away the unique playstyles each of the mysteries gave was the wrong choice. I really wish instead they made some of these feats, these same feats we get access to, based on the level our curse is, and we had to work up to use some of the powerful feats. I think that's how I would have done it personally. I would have made it where you still have to choose the weird, funky play styles, but now you get access to these feats that you can't use until your curse is progressed to a certain point. Meaning that the further you dive into your curse, the more power you get, which makes a lot of sense. But is Oracle bad now? I don't think so. And in fact, actually, based on my first video on Oracle, going over Oracle as a class, I still think it's one of the most powerful spellcasters in the game. Your repertoire is more expanded than it was before. The sheer number of special focus spells you have general access to that most classes don't, like even clerics don't have as many access to domains as you do typically. The way that you can just burn or use level 5 spell slots or lower for free with, of course, increasing your Cursebound effect. And the fact that some of the curses now are even really not that bad. Battle is a really good caster, ironically. Now, yeah, of course, we did lose some of the gishness with some of the oracles. And to that, I'm going to say you're a spellcaster. If you want to play a martial character, play a martial character. If you want to play a martial character who uses spells, multi-class archetype into like Oracle or something. I'm not going to cry over people who are not getting to swing as much as they wish Gish style as an Oracle. But I will say it sucks that that's just not the thing anymore. Now, with many things in the remaster, if you prefer the legacy content, that's between you and your GM. Now, unfortunately, in many of the cases, like the feats, for instance, for society play, that's not quite as easy. Unfortunately, society play, I'm pretty sure, are going to be using these classes moving forward. And for you players, I really do feel sorry for you. Things like Cosmos was really fun, and many of the mysteries offered very fun and unique play styles that are now really just not the same and can't be done in the same way as they were before. So I think overall, Paizo missed. I think Oracle is still incredibly strong and functions really, really well. But where's the heart and soul of it? I think that's gone now, and I think that's really tragic. I do think Oracle can get better. I think with the way they've structured it now moving forward, and they keep giving us these really, really cool features that we have to use our Cursebound for, I feel like the class will move in a good direction. But until then, it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy road. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I know nothing would stop you anyway. If you enjoy the content, leave a like and subscribe. Buy a shirt if you're inclined to do so, if you need a graphic tee. And wait for the next video. Tomorrow, I'm going to be covering Barbarian. So if you want to see the new Barbarian changes, I recommend joining our Discord, linked in the description below, as you'll get alerts whenever any of the new videos go out there. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Lead the bad luck to me. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.